right, welcome back to KM6 LYW Radio, the show about amateur radio or ham radio, reimagining radio in the information age. Today's another great example. Today we are going to build an amateur radio packet radio node. So that's AX.25 networking, netrom routing, and even email services, all in a simple radio antenna package here up on the top of a hill. Let's build it today, this time on KM6 LYW Radio. Alright, yeah, welcome back. You guys thought I wasn't going to do the bumper music. Hey, we miss you, Ozzy Osbourne. Alright, let's get to it. Alright, let's take a look at the components from the ground up. We're going to start with a 100-watt solar panel that's been holding up okay in the California sun. Under that, we've got our vault, which is a 50 caliber plastic ammo can that's partially buried, so I get some heat sinking action from the earth itself here. We've got ingress points for our PL259. This is our coax to our antenna. We've got power to the solar panel and a USB cable that runs up to the Wi-Fi adapter. On the inside, it's probably what you might expect. We've got a Yaesu 2980, stays relatively cool, pushed up against the earth. We've got a solar charge controller here. This is a cheaper one, but it's noise free. We've got a buck converter down here for 5 volts, and we've got a Raspberry Pi at the heart of all this. This is running the digipi software, digipi.org. That's an obligatory plug there. It's got USB for the Wi-Fi. It's getting power, and it's connected to the radio for push to talk in audio, and audio out on the rig here. So this is all of the contents of our vault, which is hopefully waterproof. At least I haven't really tested it yet. I'll let you know later on if it actually holds. But you know, this solar panel provides a pretty good shelter all by itself to keep water off of that. Now chasing the wires underground here, we've got some conduit. This is a 1-inch pipe here, some tie downs. We've got a 4x4. Underneath there is a pier block that I've bolted onto this 4x4. It's not the sturdiest, but it'll hold up here. We're going up our 1-inch pipe. The first thing you'll notice is a Wi-Fi adapter. So this is a TP-Link Wi-Fi adapter. Not sure I'm going to stick it out with this. This is the antenna. It's kind of a collinear antenna. Multiple antennas inside there because I'm going about 100 yards to get Wi-Fi down at the shack, which is down that way. Hey, this 1-inch conduit, sorry, I don't know the metrics for this, actually nests into a 1.5-inch PVC pipe, and I've got 3 wood claw screws tied into this, holding up our mast, which eventually leads to the diamond X200 here, and it actually fits quite well inside this 1.5-inch pole, and this has some incredible gain. So you need the antenna here, and you need some space around it. You notice I didn't put it next to any trees, and honestly it's really been getting out, so I've been really happy with this setup so far. So let's look at some of the more details on how to procure some of this stuff and put it together. All right, so before we get into the build, let's kind of do a demonstration of why we would want to do any of this in the first place. So we have digipi running in that vault in the little orange box up there. Digipi presents a website, basically turns your radio into a website. And we've turned on the AX.25 node network. We've also turned on the PAT WinLink email client. And you'll notice here there's a little link called AX Call. Let me make this a little bigger so you guys can read it. This is your AX.25 utilities like LinPack, access to your bulletin board or your BBS, which is integrated onto that digipi, or you can just call a station directly here via intermediate nodes if you want. But what I like to do is to go ahead and connect to my local node. This is through like the telnet loopback interface. So we're not on RF just yet. We are logging in. So this is our bulletin board. You know, we can say, users, give users messages. Let me sort of zoom this in even more. And talk to other folks. We've got Zork on here if you want to play video games. But what I'm going to do is type nodes to list the nodes that this node, netrom node, has discovered. So there's a whole bunch of them here in Northern California and Oregon. We've got Just looking at a couple, and we got Banner Mountain, Breckenridge, El Dorado Hills, Coors Gold. And you'll notice there's a node name, and right next to the node name is a call sign. So KM6HK-5, hey, thanks for hosting the Coors Gold node. Now, I can't really reach the Coors Gold node directly over VHF. This is all on 145.050, but since we have netrom routing on top of the AX.25 network stack, these systems are kind of meshed together. It's like they learn about each other, and there's a dynamic routing table that's generated automatically. So if I want to connect to gold, I can just say connect gold, and it's going to go through intermediate nodes. I'll do that right now. In fact, turn up the volume so you can hear the packets a little bit. That's a little loud. That's what the cool node sounds like. That's what the name of our node's called. It's called cool. And now you see it says virtual circuit established to gold. So now we're actually routing through multiple intermediate nodes. I've got an AX.25 monitor over here so you can see the actual protocol happening in real time. And it looks like we've connected through an intermediate node of a KF6ANX. So the routing table is actually working. I am connected. I think I just hit carriage return here. That was my carriage return going out. And we should get some sort of menu on Coors Gold. Now, this guy's probably 120 or so miles south of me. So that's why it's a little slow. Remember, it's about 1200 baud, and we're going through multiple relays to get to this guy. So this is our menu here. So remember the old 1980s bulletin board systems? This isn't that far off from that. We can type nodes and routes here on his system to see what nodes he's connected to, and we could connect from here to even further. And this could go all the way to Oregon or Southern California. I'm just going to type, oops, I know I can type BB. That's not a command. I wonder if it'll work. No, it works. So BB was, I was going to type BBS, but if you just type BB, evidently that works too. So you can see I'm connected to the gold mailbox, and we can see there's a bunch of messages there, bulletins. This could be any command, really. This is what's called a KA node. It's kind of old school, very reliable. You can leave messages for people back and forth, a really old school bulletin board. We can actually do a list messages. And hopefully what you hear on the radio over there is actually the cool node, which is up on the hill, doing the transmitting back and forth. So this will show me what messages are listed here, assuming this works. It is kind of at the speed of smell because I wanted to demonstrate going through multiple nodes. Now, if we were connected directly to a node, you know, if he was in range, it was under 100 miles or something like that. This goes a lot faster. Remember, AX.25 is a connected protocol, so if frames get dropped, there's an acknowledgement process, so then they're retransmitted, and it goes back and forth that way. Eventually, you'll get the stuff. You just got to be patient. So let's see. We've got a message here, 2, so I wanted to read number 2. I'm going to issue R2. And the subject is join the packet group.io. So if you want to learn more about this packet network here in California, where they've got a groups.io group. And it's a bunch of great guys hosting nodes. You know, you saw how many were up there. If I page up, I don't want to do that now. Anyways, it says QSD join the packet network group at groups.io, and they've got the URL there. So there's a message. We connected to a bulletin board and left a message. I'm just going to say bye. I know this isn't super exciting. This is like old 1980s technology, but what's cool is what's happening in the background, and that's netrom establishing all of these routes, so I can connect to radios over the horizon. In fact, I can connect to stuff in San Francisco and the Bay Area. So let's do we're back on our node now. The cool node on digipi on top of the hill, and these are all the commands we can do. You notice I typed nodes initially to see all the nodes that are generally available to me through the netrom dynamic routing, but there's also routes command, so I can see my direct routes. So these are stations I have direct access to. How cool is this? And you know, some of these are all within the horizon. Remember, VHF is line of sight. So these are nodes I can connect to directly. So nodes and routes, that's what you need to remember. Additionally, just for fun, we have the Zork. This is obligatory. Type the Zork command. You can play Zork over the radio. Remember Zork? Zork 1, the Great Underground Empire. You're standing in an open field west of a White House, a boarded front door, small mailbox here. Take a look. open mailbox, reveals a leaflet, read leaflet. You see how out of control this gets. Now, obviously, this is a huge waste of bandwidth. Anyone else with a digipi or node like this can play Zork over the radio. But what this could also be is like some emergency software. This could be telling us where gasoline is, where there's power, where there's communications, clean water. It could be a lot of different things. Right now, we're playing Zork today, but it could be any command line application that you can run on a Raspberry Pi. So anyways, that's Zork. I'm going to do quit. Yes, I want to leave, and we're back at our node. We can do little things like telnet, localhost, and actually get a command prompt on our Raspberry Pi. I'm not going to log in because I think it's going to display the password. So remember, there's no encryption here. This is through telnet over RF. So if you do use a password to log into your node, be sure to change it immediately. So I can actually log in as user Pi. And I think the default is Raspberry still in this since I just built it. But don't worry, by the time this airs, that'll be changed. So here we are connected to the Raspberry Pi command line, and I can list files, all kinds of cool stuff. So again, this is all going through loopback over Wi-Fi. There's no internet involved here, but there is Wi-Fi between my home router and my PC and the node that's 100 yards away on the hill. I can't believe we're getting that good of a Wi-Fi signal here. All right, so we can exit out of this. One other thing you can do, I'm going to say, well, I can just leave this up, is do email. So this is also a WinLink email server. So I can see we got Pat WinLink email started here. So I'm going to click on Pat email, and it's going to pull up a email interface that you probably are familiar with. It's got your inbox, your outbox, sent, archive, action. This is my inbox here. We can see what's the log down here. So I'm just going to log in and check my email. Actually, what I could do is like a compose. You could send it to somebody, Craig at yahoo.com, or you can send it to a call sign. I'm just going to send it to KM60YW, and I'm going to say this is a subject. This is the message body. All right, and then I'm going to go down here and say post. And now I'm going to do connect. This is the radio part. Connect. I'm going to do show RMS list. Switch it to packet mode. And I am going to select a nearby packet station. We see KF6DQU is nearby, 37 kilometers. I'll select him, say connect, and we can hear cool node connecting over AX.25 to KF6DQU. And it says connected to KF6DQU down here over AX.25. And it's going to go ahead and transmit the message that I just composed to myself. There it goes. Actually, we're getting another unrelated message. How about that? This never works like this live. You actually get to do something cool. Hopefully this isn't too loud. Remember, we're only hearing one side of the conversation because this isn't really connected to a real antenna here. So we are sending and receiving. We're accepting 2 emails, 2 proposals received. So let's see how this goes. So I got 27% of the first one. We can see the progress bar here. It's kind of cool. You get to actually see me check my email. Hopefully this is internet safe. And yeah, it's a response from a WinLink check-in. Lucian saying, hey, thanks for your check-in. We have a net. It's a WinLink net where we can all check in over WinLink to NCAL W-Link net. And then they'll give a report, to see who checked in and from where. And then I'm getting the second message right now. You can see it is in fact moving at the speed of smell, and this is using AX.25. This isn't using node, right? So you have to connect directly to a node or specify via and the list of intermediate nodes. So you can still do over the horizon WinLink email using the AX.25 protocol. Think of netrom as something that sits on top of AX.25. That's the way I like to think of it. It adds dynamic routing. That's really the only difference. And of course, then I got a real email here. Let me scroll down. This is an email that I just received, right? It's inviting us to check into the WinLink net. So just to give you an idea how we're doing email. So none of this really required internet. This is all me doing RF. I could have absolutely no internet whatsoever and still be checking email, doing the bulletin board stuff, talking keyboard to people, all of that. And I can monitor the network activity over here with LinPack, which is another great AX.25 utility. All right, so we actually connected to another node. We what else did we do? We used netrom to connect to a node, and then we also did the telnet so we could see ourselves, our own command prompt, and then these are all the other cool commands. We can see all the other nodes that are near us, how to route to remote nodes. Pretty cool. So AX.25 and netrom along with WinLink email all in one node on one frequency. I'm impressed. I really like this technology. I'm really glad I built this node. Yeah, so speaking of building this node, this is basically a pictorial diagram of my trials and tribulations and mistakes of putting all of this together. So we started with the 4x4. We got the 1.5 inch PVC, the gray stuff, which is UV resistance, and I got us some galvanized screws to put all that together. You need a little hole on one side, a big hole on the other, so you can get the screwdriver in there. No, I used an actual power drill for this. But anyways, that's the demonstration of putting the mast onto the 4x4. This is what it looks like in the backyard now that it's too long to fit in the garage. So we've got the mast attached to the 4x4, and we've got some 1-inch conduit for our USB cable and for our RG8X for RF. And we got some collars there to lock it down. And we've also got a pier block down there that we're going to bolt this onto. So the 4x4, I don't know, maybe 20 bucks. PVC is pretty cheap. This pier block was like $30, but we can bolt this 4x4 to the pier block and then sink that into the ground. When you're building a node that's like remote and on a hillside, it's a lot harder than you think. It's really easy to build something in your shack. You know, it's air conditioned, there's no bugs, you have all of your tools, you know, power's readily available. So get all of this working before you start carting all of this stuff to your repeater site. So this is basically what's in that orange box. We got the Yaesu 2980 hooked up to a dummy load for right now. We got a Raspberry Pi with no screen on it. We've got a solar charge controller here for when this goes to the solar panel. This little ammeter here is just to see what kind of current we're drawing. And this isn't the battery I used. This is a 6 amp hour battery. I've got a 16 amp hour battery in the box. So yeah, this is the battery that you're going to need. Of course, make sure everything's fused, please. I've got a USB extension cable that's going to reach to the top of the pole where I'm going to plug in this little device is a Wi-Fi adapter with a really long antenna. So this is it all working on the ground, and test it like crazy before you take it up to your repeater site. We're going to be making a lot of trips. This is it receiving right now at 3.9 watts. How about that? About 300 milliamps. Pretty amazing that not only the Raspberry Pi, but the radio, everything is consuming 3.9 watts on receive. So we can get away with a pretty small lithium iron phosphate battery. Again, that's 16 amp hours is what's in there right now. Of course, the solar charge controller is telling us the load's consuming 200 milliamps. It's not exactly accurate, but still great. So this is actually the first box I made. So see, this went through several preparations. So this is like preparation G, right? So initially I put that drilled holes in the side of the box, thinking that would be more waterproof, but it really wasn't because I wanted to bury the box. So I moved I drilled holes in the lid instead so I could bury more of the box. So yeah, this is definitely preparation H. Huge success. Love it. So this is our Diamond X200. I got this at HRO. Thanks, guys. It is brilliant white. You can get it any color you want, so long as it's pearlescent white. It's not exactly HOA friendly. So I did go ahead and buy some Rust-Oleum. I actually called them and said, hey, is there any metal in your paint? Because you want to make sure you don't put metal on the radome for your antenna. So Rust-Oleum Ultra Cover, good stuff. I just made it an olive green color so it would kind of blend in to the oak trees and be HOA friendly. So once I got the antenna up, propped up above ground, I did an SWR test. The diamond was 1.5 to 1.5 on the ends, and then it really dipped down to almost 1-to-1 at 146 megahertz. And then, of course, our target frequency is 145.050, and we are at 1.3 to 1. That's perfect. Anything under 1.5, it's fine. Don't change it. It's fantastic. Loving that. So this is it kind of mocked up. So we're not quite on the hill yet, but I still wanted to see how it was going to work. See if the earth was going to be a good enough heat sink for the radio so I could run it at higher wattage. This was preparation G here, where I still had the the outlets on the side of the box. This is putting the diamond antenna into the diamond cowling, okay, and then that cowling fits into our 1.5-inch PVC pipe. Remember, ABC, always be choking, or you're going to get common mode currents flowing down this coax and getting into your box and causing all kinds of crying and screaming and yelling. So put a couple of chokes on there, just to be sure. So this is the base of the antenna. This is the cowling that comes from diamond, and this is the RG8X that I happen to have laying around. All right, the diamond cowling that fits under the antenna, it isn't a real snug fit into a 1.5-inch PVC pipe, so I just put some Velcro stickers on the top and bottom, and it slides in nice and firmly. There's no rattle, it's not going anywhere, so just any kind of padding there is going to help get the diamond antenna into our 1.5-inch PVC mast. If this ground looks hard, that's because it is. Welcome to California. This is our California rock. This is arguably what the mantle of the earth is made out of. So a lot of patience with a pickaxe and a shovel, and I was able to sink that pier block in our mast and dig a little hole for our vault right here up on the hill. For the SO238 or PL259 connector, you're going to want a 5/8 inch drill bit, and for the gland here for the solar and USB, I got a 3/4 inch drill bit. Just make sure you get one that fits. Make sure there's gaskets on these. These don't always come with gaskets, and of course the lid on this thing has a gasket on it as well. This is me cranking them down with monkey wrenches. I haven't actually splashed water on these. I probably should, but this gland here you can actually crank down, and the rubber grommet will shrink down and crush the wires going in there. So it should be pretty watertight. This is the buck converter. This is what generates 5 volts for the Raspberry Pi. It's fairly quiet. I kind of waved my HT over it looking for noise on VHF. I really didn't detect any. I know a lot of you are thinking, well, the solar charge controller has USB outputs on it. And yes, it does, and they do work. But what I discovered with that particular solar charge controller is if anything is plugged into that USB port, then you can't turn off the load. You can't disconnect the load. So if the battery gets below 10 volts, it will not disconnect the load if the USB is plugged in. So I couldn't figure that out. So, and you need that. So, if the battery becomes depleted, you want your USB charge controller to kill all the power to the load and the Raspberry Pi. Which for some reason that didn't work if anything was connected to USB. And then of course when the battery comes up to a certain voltage, this is programmable. I put like 12 volts to go ahead and turn that load back on, and the system comes back online. So it's just a way to protect the battery and not completely deplete your battery, because if the battery goes down to the BMS and it triggers due to undervolt, you're going to have to walk back to the repeater site and reset that battery or get it charged manually. Again, this here is preparation H with the points of ingress, egress here on the lid, which I was really happy with. Initially, I didn't want the rain to land on this, but the solar panel's going over it anyway, so it's just fine. This is it buried in the ground. One thing I didn't mention in my intro video, there is a 16 amp hour battery sitting under this solar charge controller. This is like hard pan clay. The radio is pushed up against this. If you put your hand inside there and up against the walls of the polypropylene ammo box, it's actually cool. So I'm running this flat out at 80 watts, and to be honest, a packet radio duty cycle is pretty short. You're not doing a lot of transmitting. They're really short bits of information, so it just doesn't get hot. This is the other side of it. I got digipi over here. This is a type A configuration where I have an FEPI audio board connected to that guy. There's no screen on it because it's in a box, right? I actually got it wet, to get that hard pan to really harden up and seal up against that box. I was really worried about heat dissipation, right? And it turns out it just wasn't an issue at all. For the solar panel, I did buy some legs for this just to get it up off the ground, and I'll see if I can stake it to the ground to keep the wind off of that, keep it from blowing away. I did get some split tubing for all of these to protect the wires from rocks, UV, and creatures. We live in the woods, so there's a lot of curious animals out here that would love to just chew this thing into little bits. This is what the solar panel looks like on its legs, and this is the Wi-Fi adapter. So I've got a USB extension cable that goes up most of the way here. And the Wi-Fi adapter is actually a USB device under this split tubing. Then there's the long antenna here. The Wi-Fi adapter doesn't really work with the 6.12 Linux kernel. After a couple of days, it just loses its mind. So I've got a little script that actually restarts Wi-Fi if for whatever reason it stops. Now, if you're watching this and the Raspberry Pi switches to the 6.14 kernel, you don't have to do that. It's supposedly that's all fixed there, but it's not in this case. It's always something, right? It's always something. Final picture of the antenna here. I think it looks pretty good. It's definitely HOA friendly. It's kind of got that dark green to the background of the trees, natural colors. This is what the HOA would actually see. I don't know. Can you see the image here? It's right about there. In fact, if we zoom in, this is it. So I think it looks good. You have to look for it to see it, right? It's way up on the hill away from anything. So pretty cool. I did want to mention the Raspberry Pi here. This is a Raspberry Pi 02 wireless. All right. It's a 4-core system, and this doesn't even tax it at all. All the software runs perfectly on it. I've got an FePi audio board because I had one in a box, and a transistor here I use for the push-to-talk switching. And of course, these signals, push-to-talk, ground, audio in, and audio out, go through this cable. You could use a digi-rig or something too if you don't feel like twisting all these little wires together. So that's the Raspberry Pi. Pretty cool. These are all of the, I think I covered all of the bill of materials to build one of these. And just to give you an idea on the pricing, like a 100-watt solar panel, $76. This stuff has really come down in price, guys. Okay, just the legs are $30. You get the legs. It's kind of a nice feature rather than just leaving it in the dirt. We got the batteries. Boy, lithium iron phosphate batteries have really come down. $42 for 16 amp hours. I remember when these are well over 100, and that wasn't long ago. The actual ammo can here is an MTM polypropylene can. It's not UV resistant, so be aware, but it is a little more thermal conductive than typical plastic or ABS plastic. $17. I bought a couple of them because, the multiple preparations I made, and I destroyed a couple of these. I'm happy with the last one. Hey, we've got glands here. I don't know. They call them glands. I don't know. Grip connector, I guess. This is what you run the power cable and the USB cable through, and it has a little, you crank it down and the rubber seals around it. This is the buck converter. We're talking about $9. It generates 5 volts at 3 amps, more than enough for a Raspberry Pi. And these are the PL259 connectors, bulkhead connectors. These do not come with a gasket, so you're going to need an O-ring there, guys. You just need one of those. And the Wi-Fi adapter, which I'm really not that happy with, is the TP-Link AC1300. Just the Linux drivers are a little dodgy for it right now. It's kind of well known, but I've got a workaround where we can restart it. And then of course the diamond antenna from Ham Radio Outlet. Hey, thanks guys. Appreciate it. Got this mail order. $130 for the Diamond X200. Fantastic antenna. I've got one on top of my shack here, so it's amazing. All right, and for those of you wondering how you get the digipi SD card software image that we just demonstrated, you get that at digipi.org, and it goes to patrons of the channel. The digipi software is kind of like a way for me to give something tangible back to people who support the channel, and it implements all of the data modes we talk about on this channel, including the netrom, AX.25, everything we just demonstrated here. So digipi.org is where you get that software. Again, it goes to patrons of the channel. There's an overwhelming number of you now, Steve, everyone. This is amazing. The support's been overwhelming, and I know some of you have actually sent me email to show me how to do a scroller so I can do a little higher production value here. So these are all the patrons. Everyone here has access to the digipi. Everyone here can build one of these nodes on a hill, maybe behind their house or up. It could be a high level. It can be completely autonomous. So I was pretty happy building the cool node with digipi. So patrons of the channel get access to the digipi.org SD card image. It not only does the AX.25 node stuff, you've seen all this, but it also runs FT8, right? So you can do FT8 in your web browser. It'll APRS mode, so you can do APRS chat back and forth. It has the node services, which we just talked about. It has a fun little screen you can put on there that's optional. And you've got the APRS tracker if you get a GPS. There's multiple radio connectivity solutions, so you're not twisting wires together necessarily. And of course, we talked about email. WSJTX, FLDigi, JS8 Call, all runs like they were apps on your phone because they all run in a web browser. It's that cool. You don't have to be near your radio to make this work. So digipi.org, and it's the software that not only runs this node that we just talked about, but every data mode that we talk about on this channel. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with me today. Let me know if you build an AX.25 netrom node, WinLink email node in your yard or on a mountain somewhere, especially if you're in California and I can reach you through netrom networking. That'd be so cool. All right, guys. Hey, my name is Craig. I'm in California. Amateur radio call sign KM6LYW, and I'm clear.